So guys, welcome back to Chokora Chronicles. We had said there are certain topics we're going to discuss. Asanteni sana for tuning in once again. Thank you to all of those who have come to our assistance, the people who continue to visit GLC, the people who continue to want to know more about this center and to want to get involved in what we are doing. Asanteni sana. God bless you. So today I want to talk about, in my book, Chokora, My Life as an Addict, there was a particular part that I devoted just as a message to teenagers. Because there is a saying, the boy is the father of the man. In short, what the boy is most likely what the man will become. As I speak to you, I also want to bring into this story a friend of mine, a young man who made all these mistakes, who fitted in. He gave in to fit in. He was influenced by peer pressure. At the end of time, the miserable life that he led between the age of 18 to 20. Hey, some guys don't even live that in like a century. So I'm going to bring him in as I address this program, and I want you to listen to his story a tiny bit, and then we will get back.
So my name is David Kovi, Jesse. I am 20 years old. I am saved. I love the Lord. This hasn't always been so, but I thank God for it. Now, my story, I was born here in Kenya. I left Kenya in 2011. I went to study in Rwanda. My mother went there as a missionary to begin ACE schools, Accelerated Christian Education. I studied there for 8 years, up to 2018, almost 8 years. And in 2018 December, that's when we sat down as a family, and this system that I was doing, since it was American based, even the textbooks, the resources that we used to use in this system were all imported, and it was quite expensive. So I had now done there are 3 certificates: general, intermediate, and advanced. I'd reached around intermediate, transitioning to my advanced, but hadn't yet completed. One of the requirements that was needed was ICDL, International Computer Driving License. And so after sitting down as a family, we agreed the best place for you to do it is probably in Kenya. We came to Nairobi that same April after staying in Shags, and because I couldn't stay with my father for reasons which at first I didn't understand, so I ended up staying with a friend of his. I was welcomed into their home, and I began staying with them. I began staying with his sons, and so living with them for me was a huge transition in some senses. And so I stayed at the place for a couple of months. Then in August now, my family came together and we sat down once more. So they were like, okay, so we think the best alternative for you is for you to join the Cambridge system and do IGCSE. And so every day I'd go to this tuition center, come back, chill, continue, and I continued studying in this system up to the best part of the early year of 2020. Now before late 2019, a challenge happened. I got now to exposed to, I'd say, some sort of truths I never knew. For example, one of them was that my dad at the time was abusing alcohol. Now around November, my dad and I began staying just alongside Joseph Kangede Road, slightly before you reach Sitam Woodley. And now this new place, this is when I began to know that my dad was drinking, because now personally I've never seen him. I had never seen him drink up to that point. And he joined rehab. He ended up joining a rehab because things got so tricky. In fact, his friends had to come in and intervene financially in helping with rent and what have you. So I ended up staying alone in some sense. My mom is in Rwanda, my sister is in Rwanda, my dad is in rehab, and I'm alone in the crib. So what would happen, this group of friends, would do shopping for me, or send me cash, budget for myself, do shopping. Now, I was a 17-year-old staying alone. And of course, the level of freedom. I remember there's a certain day we went and there was these shops used to sell fries, but not only fries, they'd sell also blunts or joints or rolled weed. We smoked and I just began laughing. We were in the house alone and I was like, by the way, this is like a very funny feeling. And then now I began laughing because I was like, boy, isn't this funny? And before I knew it, I laughed until I think at some point I passed out. So for about like 3-4 hours just laughing. As for my counterpart, he was pacing around the living room, walking from the living room to around the bedroom while twisting his head, and he's like, yo bro, try this, try this bro, it actually feels really good. And so I remember now, early 2020, I made friends in the new center where I was going. And this friend was called Gabriel. Now, this new tuition center, I'll have you know, when I joined this tuition center, there was now an even bigger contrast compared to my stay. My exposure now to this new sense of people in a way, these were very well, it was a tuition that had very well-off kids who came. I began to see that these people being way well off, guys even had phones, guys my age, younger than me, had phones worth of like 200k and above, and you're just there and you're like, whoa, And me, I've always loved wearing official. I get it from my father. But now coming, you see now these guys were wearing slides, these guys would wear sweatpants, whatever. And I was like, yo, by the way, this is actually a cool way of dressing. And I began changing drastically. Now, I put it this way in a composition I'd written here in GLC, that I felt like wood surrounded by gold. And what this did for me made me very insecure. So of course, there's no way I'll be wood, and so I began painting my wood gold. I began seeing how best I can fit into this wonderful culture of my country that I've missed all these years. And so my dressing began changing. In fact, how I spoke began changing. It was more of, hey, yo, wagwan, my G, hey, easy, and really, I mean, my whole character, I'd say, in a way, began to change. Around February 2020, we were invited to a party. Now, I finally filled in my criteria or my CV, and now I was qualified for the big parties. And I remember we went for a particular party in Kilimani for some 16-year-old chick, and to describe to you what my sort of day-to-day became like that day, for example, I remember we went from Junction. Now me, I had never indulged in drugs before that time, of course, in November in 2019. But before that, in my whole life, I've never seen people actually smoke weed, smoke cigarettes, do any of these things. Never seen alcohol before. So for me, it didn't really impose over danger in a way. This sort of became the life. I'm telling you, like that night, me personally, I've never felt the way I had not felt the way I did that night. There are so many beautiful girls around me, and I was like, wow. I of course had my chains on, I had my drip, so to say. I was rocking it, and we felt on top of the world. Alcohol, after taking alcohol, smoking all those cigarettes and all that weed, I felt invisible. I felt like I was a soaring spirit, like I saw, I felt like, yeah, man, this is it. This is what Mars feels like. I've reached heights where Neil Armstrong could not. And so the next day I ended up sleeping there. The next day we smoked weed, and I write this once again in the composition that while taking these hits, it's like I inhaled depression into my life and sadness and all these things, and exhaled all the joy, all the peace I had. And you'll know why in a bit. So this continued up to around after a few months, after like 1 or 2 months, due to us and our group, what we like doing, we like flexing. There's no way we'll have like 3 or 4 mzingas on the table and then like just drink without taking snaps, without taking pictures, make sure people on status see how we are rolling, all for the views, all for the likes. And so this was the case with me. I posted it on my status, nini. Now my teacher from school now saw those statuses. I thought I had muted him from the seeing people, the people who could see my status. But unfortunately he did. Oh, thank God, actually thank God he did. Because now next what he did, he called my mother in Rwanda. And at the time my mother was shocked. Of course, now after the environment she had raised me, she couldn't believe that her son, who would lead worship in school, who would memorize scriptures and all these things, was smoking weed. And I remember she was so shocked. She was so it really broke her heart. And she really said so many things. She told me, you are just like your father, all these things. During the time I'm staying alone, and I remember this was on phone. And I really got into a state of depression in some sense. Of course, I did not know it at the time. This aspect of emotional intelligence hadn't really kicked in. And so this continued. I got expelled from that school. I stayed home for a period of 3 months. During these 3 months, of course, Gabriel introduced me to new friends. And now, this became our day-to-day. We even had WhatsApp groups and Instagram groups. Yo, where are you at, bro? Hey, send me the pin, man. I'm pulling up. We go, we get lit, we smoke weed. Being new to this culture, I knew, okay, so this is the way actually things go. But there's something I normally say here. If we are 3 people, and the three of us all smoke 4 cigarettes. If you, a new person, joins us, there's no way you will start with 1. You'll start with the 4 we are using. Why? Because you'll term it as normal. And so this was the case with me. I dived deep into drugs, not really knowing that, this you are taking excessive amounts at once and beginning. And I cross-faded drugs right from the beginning. Now what this did to me behind the scenes really affected my memory, really affected how I perceived things. Now 2020 was a year of COVID and the nini. What is this thing called? During that time whereby people are at home and the lockdown period. And during this time, my sister came back from Rwanda because at some point, me staying alone, I had started to get sick, depression, all these things. So my mom saw, hey, there's no need of this guy staying alone. Let the sister just come. And so my sister came and we began staying with her. And my mother also came later onwards. Now this, for me, I'm telling you, was the worst thing ever for me at the time, because my family having come, this meant I I did not have the freedom I no longer wanted, to do all the things I was doing in the house, have parties, all these things. And so I can remember, but the urge became so strong because now I began, I'd sneak out of the house, go smoke cigarettes, or sneak out of the house, go drinking, with some neighbors around. And this area whereby we also moved to, this area was filled with so many alcoholics around that area. In the flats and wherever. We all know the definition of sherehe huku Kenya. Sherehe si sherehe bila bangi, bila tei, bila mafegi, bila mayengs, dames, So yeah, this continued to be my life. In August now is when I began out drinking heavily. In this same August is when I was transitioned to a new school. This new school, I had more freedom. And what I'd do, I'd smoke weed when I leave the house, with the lunch money I'm given, then go to school. So I'd reach school high, and just connect to Wi-Fi and watch movies, And now the students in this new school were even worse. These students, now really contributed heavily to my indulgence into drugs. Up to late November 2020. Now behind the scenes, of course, things did not go well with my family. We began having constant arguments. My dad, on 3 different occasions. The first occasion, there's a time he literally strangled my shirt, and we had a big argument with him in the parking lot, and everybody around was seeing. Another time he threw my clothes outside the house. Another time I left the house, and I was like, Now it reached a point I couldn't support my indulgence, this new activity I came to love because of my friends. So I resorted to stealing. And so this went on. I remember at some point I got confused because I now could not understand what was happening. This was late 2020. I got depressed. My anxiety levels increased. One thing weed does to you makes you so it builds up a lot of anxiety in you. And this was the case with me. I remember so many nights crying myself to sleep. Why? Because here I was in a new identity that wasn't really mine, but I was embracing a personality that's not mine. At this time I had dyed my hair. By this time I had pierced my ears, chains, trying to get more followers on Instagram. I had valid but fake followers. Things got really bad. And I thank God now because I got saved in 2020. But now entering 2021, in 2020 December is when I got saved. Is when God reminded me of the identity that He had given me before, this new false identity that I had painted on my so-called wood. And so in 2021, I began walking with the Lord very well for about 3 months, but I slipped back into the same life I was in. Now my situation grew worse. Now what happened, I began having ups and downs. I'd be sober for a while, then for a while slip back. And this continued. Now by the end of 2021, I want you to know how bad this really got. I was now using weed, I was using cigarettes, I was using jabba, I was using tobacco leaves, I was using tobacco powder that's sniffed. They say another one that's placed under the lip. I was now using Xanax pills. These are anti-anxiety bipolar pills. I was now using comethazine and promethazine. I mean codeine too. I was using lean, all these pharmacy-based, syrups that you need a prescription to have. But us, we had the prescription. And what this became so bad, I began now. At some point, I had a camera, a Canon camera. And my dad thought that, I'd leave the house and I'm going for work and whatever. But really, I was just going to get lit and all these things. I failed my exams, went to some of my exams when I was drunk, and my life just continued to become a mess. My life continued deteriorating. And at some point, my dad was like, hey, okay, you guy now, you need to get a place to stay. This is now late 2021. I told him it's okay. And for real, I could have actually gotten a crib to stay. But me, I'm getting high every day, hallucinating. Sometimes I come back home blackout. Sometimes I come back home sleep all day. So you see, there's nothing productive I'm doing. It's just drugs, more drugs, sex, drugs, more music, more drugs, and all these fake friends and all these things. And now actually, I told my dad, no pressure, I'll get a place. After this week, after he gave me a timeline of a week, a deadline of a week, 2 weeks. And at the end of it all, I hadn't gotten a place. But I was like, it's fine. After all, I have my cousin. I can go stay with him. Which was the case. I lied to my dad. Yeah, I've gotten a crib. I'm moving. All this stuff. I put all the furniture that he had given me to some friend's place. Then I went to stay with my cousin. Now things there. Of course, now, these drugs, what they do, they affect your relationship with people. And my cousin was not indulging in drugs. I ended up stealing his bike. Now my thievery continued increasing. And at some point now, I could no longer stay with him. And this is where now my transition and entering into the streets came to be. We continued like this, moving from places to places, party life. I got a new nickname. I was now called Trey the Trapper because I could freestyle. So, I was one of the cool kids now. The party was not a party without me, how impossible. And so, I became all these things, but really on the inside, I just continued to be more and more empty. But then at the end of it all, now this group of friends, Jabavu Heights, there was a certain Muslim guy. And this friend, I remember we used to stay up all night and chew jaba while drinking or smoking weed. I now sort of became like a plug. So I'd plug him, I'd go get weed, all this stuff. And so little did I know, I spent most of my nights near his place. Then during the day, I'd go sleep, I'd black out at my friend's couch or something. So you see, I'm not even mindful of where I'm staying anymore. After a while now, due to lean makes you hallucinate, makes you see things. I remember I went to a certain place where they sell jaba. And that day I was using lean. And it got very late at night. And I was hallucinating. I was seeing my own things. And I remember I mixed it. I began chewing jaba too, smoking cigarettes, all these things. And there were a group of thugs there. Now these thugs, what happened, I put on a beat, began freestyling up. They're like, hey man, this guy is a gangster and whatever. And for sure, my life had become that way. By this time, I had dreadlocks, very long dreadlocks. This time, I robbed alcohol stores, I robbed people of their phones. There's this one time, just along that prestige place, there was these certain ladies who are passing. Na nikawambia, leteni simu zenyu ama niwadunge mavisu. And so this music I had listened to earlier. You imagine me coming from the environment I've come from. And look at me now. Look at the person who's... And before I knew it, I remember those thugs were like, yo, bro, this is so cool. Let's go to our place. And we went. And that night, turns out this place was actually in Kibs, and it was like actually like a madhouse. The door couldn't even close. It was literally what you'd call in the States a trap house. It was a trap house. And I slept there for a few nights. I remember my self-worth deteriorated to the point kazi yangu ilikuwa ya kuchagua jaba. In the base, I chagua the leaves, then I take the leaves which have been thrown, and this is what I'd chew. And things continued becoming, but during this time I was still peddling for that Muslim guy. I remember we would steal a car with some of my friends, go driving all over, go to near the ends of USIU, and at some point now, this friend began telling me, yo bro, we need to get guns, we need to find a way and get Glocks and all the, and he had the money for it. The guy could rent a crib worth of like 150k if he wanted to up or two saizo. And so I remember this became the constant pressure this friend would put on me. And you know, he'd stress much on us going to his league and things like that. And so yeah, this became my life. I became a thug. I used to love listening to Young Thug. That was my biggest motivator. And I see surely what you eat is who you are, because all this stuff I was needing really changed me. And so yeah, this became my life. I was a bat, like Batman. You know, I'd stay up all night, sleep during the day. Before I knew it, now after a while I couldn't stay with these thugs, because things became now tricky. You know, you walk on that road, you could be stabbed. You know, there are all these disco, these party groups whereby, you know, people fight with you over women. You are stabbed, you are given your jabs, you know. So I was like, nah, I don't think I can handle this life. So I began now literally living in the streets. Now, if you know Tulip Hotel, which is near Yaya Center, in front of Tulip Hotel, by the grass there, that is where I began to sleep. And this continued for 2 months. I was in the streets. During these 2 months, I've seen all sorts of things. I remember my self-worth reached so low at some point. I was now having cheap sex by the road, worth for like about 250 shillings. You are bargaining with a woman, you know, and you'd go there behind the street at some corner and sleep with her there on the road, on the floor. Things became so bad. I thank God I had my guitar with me. This guitar, I've been with it for a couple of years. How God kept this guitar up to this point, I don't know. But my self-esteem and self-worth got so low, I'd put a jar near Yaya Center. And I'd given up completely, and I just play and wait for people to come bring coins or whatever. I remember I'd enter Kibandas, you know, fake and lie and be like, hey, by the way, I've actually left my wallet, where or whatever. Let me leave this jacket, I'll be back, you know, with my good English and all this stuff, you know, and just go and disappear. So my life became a life of debts. My life became terrible. And all this was because at the end of it all, my life was vacant inside me. And I think this is the message, because Solomon Guitar has asked me to mention a message to the youth. And I thank God for GLC. I came to GLC early February this year. And GLC found me at my lowest points. At this time, I was drinking changa worth about 20 shillings, bargaining. I was living in the streets. I was living in shags at that time. Life had gotten that bad. I was living in shags, changa every day. I remember it was so sad seeing a woman who's pregnant and she's smoking and she's drinking changa and all these things. And so this became my life. But I thank God, because one night God reminded me of who He is, and I cried out to Him. And I remember calling a family friend, and they said something that I'll never forget. She said, she's called Caroline Bongo, no matter how many times you chop this tree on the stem, it will still grow back. No matter how many times you cut the branches, it will still grow back. And so what you have to do is uproot this tree from the roots. And I realized, this is where my problem is. No wonder I find myself in this situation all over. No wonder I'm stuck in a constant cycle. And so I came to GLC. She mentioned of Solomon Guitar's story, how he was once in the streets, all these things. And I said, yeah, I want to change. Yeah, I want to fix my life. I want to know who I am. I want to know who I am. I don't know who I am. And so I came here to GLC. And this environment, I've been here for 2 months now. Actually, 3 months. I'm leaving next week. And I really thank God, because I've begun to be taught how these are things in the mind and how these seeds are planted into you. And I want to point this out to my fellow youth. If you do not know who you are, and I repeat, if you do not know who you are, then the rest of society, somebody else will tell you who you are meant to be. You know, ask yourself, how did you come to listen to Pop Smoke? How did you come to listen to so and so? You know, how did you come to listen to all this music? I mean, you'll realize it's just the circles you keep. It's just the people you keep. Don't live for the gram. The gram is fake. Instagram is fake. All this fancy lifestyle. Go to my former Instagram page. I have all sorts of pictures, you know, in landscapes, in whatever, you know, posing, you know, lighting my joints, looking like I'm living the life. Hey, I'm telling you, it's all fake. It's all, don't get your worth off social media, off cheap dopamine. That's cheap dopamine. I'm telling you, really find out who you are. If you can find out who you are, why you are here, and where you are going, I'm telling you, you live a fulfilling life. You live a life of peace. And above all, our generation is a generation that really needs God. I became an atheist. Having joined these schools, I became an atheist. My self-worth, all these things disappeared. I denounced God, you know. But at the end of it all, I thank God, because surely the Bible says, whatsoever you plant, whatsoever you sow, you will reap. Whatsoever you sow, you'll reap. That message you are sowing right now, that movie you are watching right now, that series you are watching right now, ask yourself, what value is it contributing to my life? The other day I made a list of all my friends. Me, I'm an extrovert. I had over 90 friends in total. Who, you know, one die like this, oh bro, mzinga hapo. But you see now, when I began to now chambua and find out who are my true friends, does this friend make me productive, or does he deplete from me? Is he contributing positive things into my life or negative things into my life? Guard your mind. And so at the end of this evaluation, imagine my friends came from 90 friends all the way to 15 friends. That I can genuinely say, these are people who love me, who care for me and want a future for me. Yeah? And so this is my message to you. Do not peer pressure, do not live for others. You own the pen to your story. God has been so gracious to give you a blank canvas and to make you a pen. Your willpower, your decisions, you are the pen to your story. You decide what you're gonna write on your story. And it can be a very beautiful picture. But at the same time, it can be one of the ugliest things ever. And so be careful who you hand your pen. Don't be like a prostitute. Don't be moved around by people. Oh, we are going like this. We are going like this. Oh, we are going this way. We are going this way. Jesus says, he who builds his house on a rock, I liken him unto a wise man. But he who builds his house on the sand, when the storm comes, because the storm will come. The other day I just realized, oh my goodness, actually life is only gonna get more demanding into my life. I'm 20 right now. I have no papers. I don't have secondary papers. I don't have nothing, you know. The devil has robbed me of so many of my years. Early of my years, even before drugs, I realize now I lived for virtual reality, lived for games, GTA, you guys know, GTA 5, GTA San Andreas, all these things, you know, series, all these things. But let me tell you, they contribute and heavily into your life. You are what you think. That's what the Bible says. What you think is who you are. So ask yourself, am I thinking the right things? Will I attain the goal I want to reach? And with all that said, I thank Solomon for the great work they are doing here. I've received love in this place. I've had so many brothers here. I've come to see stories which were way worse than mine, being encouraged by so many people. I now have a sense of purpose for my life. I know what I want in life. I know what I'm going to do in my life. I now have the pen to my life. We were asked here a question one day, who is a leader? And I now come to see that truly a leader is he who has the pen to write his own story. God bless you.
Well, guys, need I say more? You've heard it from Jesse. Just what we started with in the beginning. This issue of trying to, you give in so that you can fit in and be part of the crowd. Be one of the cool kids. You just heard what it did to him. What does this teach you? There are two things in life that are likely to change you. You can be changed by one, inspiration. Listening to something like his story and deciding to make a change. Or you can deny and blame all you want and continue in your denial until desperation will force you to change. There are two ways change will come to you, either through inspiration or through desperation. Till next time, like, subscribe, share, till we meet next time.